There's gonna be a funny tactic in the position. I'm calling queen takes on a8 and my opponent resigns. Let's see. And there you go. Oh my god, no way this actually happened. Alright, let's go d4 playing anonymous GM. That is just his nickname. I don't know if he's an actual GM or not. Gonna play like knight f3, bishop f4. Bishop d6, knight d2. That's a good line for black. Gonna play c3 and on queen c7 we can take. Really expecting him to take on f4 though. Okay, this is actually nice for us because we can take and play knight e5 and try to get into like the reversed stone wall, which is kind of nice to play. You have a really nice knight on e5, sitting on the outpost. And on queen b6, I mean, generally we just answer this with rook b1 when we can. So he just goes back to c7. Don't think he really achieved much with it, and we can just like castle. Ideally he'd do something like this and trade, but I don't think he's in time. And now he's got this type of ideas, and if we just play queen f3, keeping an eye on that. And then this is the plan. Just gonna go for the attack. I've had some students saying that, but we get such a weak king, but you know, the fact that, you know, we push g4, since he doesn't have any pieces nearby, it doesn't really mean our king is weak. So you can safely do this and have a big advantage. And now you could also go for like a queen trade if you really want, but there's no need to. And we can just take, open up the file, play like rook f2. I believe just doubling up seems very reasonable. He'll try this, but I don't know, I don't think it's that critical. There's gonna be a funny tactic in the position. I'm calling queen takes on a8 and my opponent resigns. Let's see. That is a bit of an over-optimistic call, but I don't know. So like I'm expecting b4 and then takes in queen a5. And then I'll have like a rook f7 tactic, but not sure if that's actually gonna happen. So looks like it's not. So my guess is not gonna be on point, but it would have been nice, you know, if you would have played b4. Like someone who plays b5, you're really expecting to play b4 in the next move, wouldn't you? So okay, how do we win this now? I guess just slowly bring the king, h4, g5, try to squeeze. Pushing pawn next. His pieces are stuck to defending f7. He's got only like an active rook. Doesn't really bother me. Rook f7, queen a8. Remember that, but he's got rook e3. Ah, damn it. Would have been nice. But still, like takes on e3 and then like king somewhere. Still doesn't work. Like king h2, he's got rook h3, queen g3. I mean, oh, that's a pity. But okay, rook f3. And then maybe rook f, queen a2, rook f7. So he's gonna take and then we're gonna do this. Yeah? Just for the content, so we take on f7. Remember what I said. And now we go there. And I'm expecting resign. And there you go. Oh my god, no way this actually happened. I called it thousands of moves ago. I mean, he could have spoiled the entire thing by taking, and I think the position's actually super unclear, but he took and actually got it for the content. That's nice. I feel like this is gonna be really nice on YouTube. But I mean, I've had to sort of ruin my position in the process for that, because he could have gone rook e3 there for sure. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how you want to deal with this queen c7 line. I believe there's like a Jonathan Schrantz video where he recommends the system going knight d7 and e5. And that is pretty good, only that, you know, a quick mention in his video, white's bishop is already placed on g3, so this works very well. And black just equalizes with this quick e5 play, but notice that against the super quick bishop d6, we don't play bishop g3, but we delay that. Because, you know, when we see c5 on the board, then surely we can play bishop g3. But we don't do it in this scenario with the bishop on e3 because there are a bunch of annoying setups. Like for this instance, an example would be queen c7 and like knight d7. But other than that, what I think it's actually the problem is that they can go b6, bishop b7, and then let's say play c3. They constantly play bishop d3, and they'll never like really take on g3 if you're playing against like a good player, and they can go knight e4 and no longer play with c5. So that's like pretty annoying, and that's why we need to keep the bishop on f4. And yeah, then if we can get it on the reverse stone wall, I'll actually make it this way. It's like really nice, and this is also gonna be like a separate chapter in my chessable course where we are actually just explaining the plans and this kind of thing of how you need to like develop the initiative, maybe do the rook lift. I couldn't really do the rook lift here because he went with the bishop there and had knight e4 ideas, but I think it's gonna be nice. And there's a rule of thumb: when you can defend the b2 pawn with rook b1, you should. And as I was saying, you can sure go g4, but then the idea is to play knight e4, so this is giving them counterplay. So first, I like to play queen f3, control this square, and we get an improved version here. For example, after like, let's say they go a6, like random move, if they go there, I mean, we've managed to now get back to normal kind of lines, and yeah, we pretty much get to rook lift and destroy black on the king side. So yeah, the lesser evil, it's what he did in the game, sacrificing the pawn, but he's just like much worse. And if you remember like my guess when I said we're gonna get like queen a8 checkmate and he resigns, was that I'm gonna play this move. He goes b4. I was just expecting something like this, and queen a5 can take on f7 and then this. So this is like what I had in mind when I said my guess, but he played something else. But funny enough, we also managed to get it in the game. After queen a3, rook f3 was not ideal. Should have played rook e2 to keep both pawns defended, but I really wanted to get the content in with rook f7. As I was saying, you can do this, and yeah, it's kind of super unclear. It's apparently very drawish, but he allowed it, and we got it. So I think it was very good for content. Getting queen a8, and yeah, he is just kind of doomed. So alright, we're getting the white pieces against an FM. Let's go d4 and see if we can get some interesting London stuff. So he goes d5. Gonna be playing knight f3 now, e3. Knight goes into d2. Really important, do not play c3 because black can go queen b6 in that position. And looks like we're gonna be having the good old main lines with bishop to g4, where yeah, point is to develop the queen to b3. And in this position, it's super important to play the move knight e5. I think actually this is the best way of playing, and this is also going to be the main recommendation in my upcoming course on Chessable on the London. So against c4, we're going to be trading of queens, and usually, you know, it looks like a good thing for our opponent if he forces us to take on b6 and open up the rook. But this is a bit of an interesting scenario, because in exchange we have gotten the bishop there, which yeah, like fully compensates for you know, his kind of active play on the queen side right now. So the idea would be now to take on d5 and play g3, fianchetto the bishop. I've actually looked up this position before. White should be slightly better. I've had many games already with this, and yeah, I mean, let's see how my opponent will decide to play, because he can either, you know, try to go for super quick play with b4, but I don't necessarily think that will achieve much, since we can simply go bishop g2, castle short, and go for rook f e1. And we're gonna be having some pressure for sure. Gonna be castling, so it looks like he's not going to yeah, expand in the center. I can play a3, I could go rook e1, and that's kind of allowing him to go b4. I think I like a3, just fixing everything for the time being. And yeah, we're just looking for a slow type of maneuvering game with the two bishops. And now an idea would be to play rook e1 and try to bring this knight towards e3, putting pressure on the pawn on d5. There's also an idea of going bishop to e5, because in case he takes, we'll get additional pressure over the d5 pawn. I kind of like that idea. I'm thinking to use it, even though I really like the two bishops. So I think we'll start off by doubling rooks on the e file. We can trade bishops, I believe, and yeah, he's got ideas of b4 now, so we need to sidestep that idea. Maybe he had b4 on the previous move. I forgot about it when I played rook e2, but yeah, can go either knight f3, knight e5, knight f1, knight e3. I think going with the knight to e5 might be actually more annoying in this specific position for our opponent, because yeah, obviously the knight on e5 is more active than it would have been on e3, even though that is also a fine idea that you need to keep in mind. So yeah, I think it's just like slightly better for white. It's not like much, but yeah, it's kind of a pleasant advantage, and we're gonna be getting the e5 square, and then try to maybe push pawns like f4, h3, g4, try to slowly squeeze my opponent. And in the meantime, he doesn't really have a lot of counterplay because these pawns are kind of fixed. So on rook e8, just gonna go knight e5. He could have taken and gone rook e6, but I think we have at least like f4 in that position, and we're gonna go f4 anyways. And the idea is simply to expand now, I believe. He goes knight e7, maybe he wants knight there. Maybe just go g4. Also, I think he has this idea to get a knight to like d6. I wanted to stop the route from f5, but maybe on knight c8 we have g5 as a good move now. I think we actually have that. And on knight c6, can we actually go g5? Just gonna play like a solid move, solid waiting move. I want to see what he wants to play, because if he takes, we're kind of happy generally. He does go g5 himself. Do we go h4? I like h4 here. I think it's a good move, because if he takes, we get in g5. Let's see. He has knight d5 maybe that I missed. Yeah, knight e5 is a super important move because I had a tactic. I'll show you after the game what it was. I think it's still kind of good for us. Knight there, but simply bishop d5 looks good. Could have also traded both rooks. I think this is now getting into like the winning territory, because I'm winning like a lot of pawns. If you can notice, like all of his pawns are on light squares. It's pretty funny. I'm gonna bring my king on king there. Oh, he goes f6 instead. Yeah, I'm gonna be taking bishop f3, collecting the pawn next. I mean, actually gonna take the pawn on b5 because it's more important, as we also have rook b7 ideas. And yeah, just gonna make this move, cutting his king. Don't want to allow rook d2, but maybe I don't have a choice at this point. Yeah, and then I'm gonna take this. Yeah, just gonna take everything. Can we take his knight? That would be lovely. I guess not. Yeah, just push. Yeah, just winning the knight. Gotta need some quick pre-moves here. Oh, was expecting to mate, but takes a while. But we actually end up getting it. So, okay, that was actually, I believe, a pretty smooth game. Perhaps I've missed an opportunity to win material with g5. I'll have to show you based on a knight d7 tactic. So yeah, we'll just jump into the analysis tab, and I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, if we go there, yeah, so that is pretty much the line. Normally they're supposed to play queen c8 as the best move in this position, and yeah, I think my main recommendation would be the move knight h4 with h3 and g4. I already have plenty of YouTube videos covering how to actually play these positions and how to develop your initiative after you grab the two bishops. And yeah, on queen d7, the important detail is to start with bishop to b5, because I have a pretty popular video where there's an idea of knight e5, with the point being that you take there and then you win the queen. But in that video, it's important that these pawns are off the board, and then knight e5 is best. So the difference is that if you're trying to do the same, black just got this additional option of closing the diagonal with this in-between move c4. And yeah, the position is actually super tricky. So it's best against queen d7 with pawns on the board. I mean, this pawns. Just play bishop b5 first with knight e5, and yeah, which just has a super nice initiative. So that's why black prefers the move queen c8. And when they go for queen b6, sort of the universal answer would be to take and go bishop to b5. I believe this idea is recommended in like most of the London books, but in this particular scenario, I think it's best to start with knight e5 and use so in this game. Why? Because we're actually threatening to take this, and if they go bishop f5, we can now take on b6 and play bishop to b5, and we just get a much better version of the previous idea that we've seen of taking on b6 and play bishop to b5, because he had to waste the tempo. And then like rook c8, a common idea would be something like this, let's say, and black will usually find himself in a situation where they play knight d7. We trade. Yeah, I think trade is fine. Even better to take on c6, and then rook is kind of problematic here, because if they go there, bishop b7, winning the free pawn, black's just lost. If they go to d8, same idea, more or less just go bishop b7, and there's like no actual way of defending that, because knight b8 can simply get rid of the knight, collect the free pawn, and white has a winning endgame. So if we go back, black kind of has to play this c4 move, and yeah, as I was saying, I had this position previously. I've looked it up with Lila Zero. White has slightly better position after this g3 move. Pretty important, getting the bishop and hitting the pawn. And yeah, apparently you can start with knight f1 here. As I was saying, this is kind of always super nice maneuver in the structure. I just wanted to play it slower, just go like rook e1, and I think I did a pretty bad inaccuracy here because I allowed my opponent to play b4. And this is a very common idea because I can't take with the a pawn since the rook is hanging on a1, and yeah, also can't take this way. Now d4 is hanging, but among other things, they can also take, usually exploiting the fact that the rook is undefended. So this was a small inaccuracy on my part. My opponent failed to spot it since he played bishop d6 immediately, and we just got into like the typical positions anyways. And as I was saying, this is still a thing, but I thought just getting the knight to e5 was more effective here, since I thought it applies more pressure onto black's position, because we can then use the plan that I was saying, expanding on the king side. He went rook e8, I went f4, and I was thinking he has this type of ideas, so if we like play a slow move, he would be just fine after getting this knight into e4, and position would in fact just be equal after like knight d6. Let's say g4, they get a knight there, and we have a good knight on e5, they have a good knight on e4, which means yeah, the position is just equal. So problem for my opponent in the game was that he's not really able to do that, because if he goes knight c8, could have actually gone g5, and after the pawn trade, let's say he goes like knight h7, or like even let's say knight h5 with this idea, well, there's this super nice tactic here. We can go knight d7. If king moves, we obviously win the rook, white just wins, and if they take our knight, that actually allows a mate in one. So yeah, due to this deflection, white is just completely winning, and yeah, this is just working because we have played this g4 move, just taking a lot of space, and yeah, we're slowly just getting ready to squeeze black's position. And I also believe I've had this during the game. Like here, I could have gone g5, because if he goes there, there's like same tactic in the position. And if he like takes on e5 like he did in the game. We can just take now, and the knight can't move because we take, and then win the rook again. I played bishop f3 though, which was kind of slow. Yeah, I mean, it was that type of move that I'm making to keep the position. I obviously missed the fact that he can play g5 himself. So, yeah, that was a bit of a dodgy move here. He went g5, and then I went for it anyways. It's not working as well, but I really wanted to get into this stuff because, yeah, again, if knight moves away, let's say h7, same tactic is in the position, white wins material. Opponent took on e5, and now you can see that there's no longer this idea. Okay, I mean, this is also hanging as well, but I took, and yeah, this is just winning. I'm pretty sure we can trade both rooks and still win. Maybe not, but why? I think they should be winning because we win all pawns. Ooh, we don't win all pawns because of king d7, and it's kind of tricky now. But yeah, bishop d5 is kind of a standard way of playing, and yeah, I mean, if we count pawns, I believe they are equal. But due to the fact that black's pawns are like so weak, and yeah, I mean, we're just completely winning with like a +3 advantage. And you saw why in the game he's simply unable to defend, and I slowly collected all of his pawns pretty much. Okay, some mistakes there in the time trouble, but yeah, we just managed to collect all the pawns and then win the game. So yeah, I like playing this type of lines because we get to push without really taking any risks, and we can just rely on sort of standard maneuvers, just improving our positions. And yeah, it's kind of hard to play these positions as black because you don't really have a lot of counterplay, and white is like slowly squeezing you, and it's not really a pleasant situation to be in. So okay, we're facing FIDE master. Let's go d4, and yeah, I guess d5 we're gonna be using the move knight f3, bishop f4. Looks like we're having a Chigorian. Gonna go e3 and h3. Play with the two bishops, and see, against this line, I like going bishop b5, but his knight is still on g8, meaning that he is skipping options of playing knight e7, so I'm gonna wait for him to develop the knight to like f6, and if he delays that and goes for bishop to d6, I think we'll have to simply play c3 and yeah, accept that we're not gonna be getting like a crushing advantage from the opening, but we're just hoping to get a slightly easier position to play. And yeah, we're still allowing him to take on f4 since I think that's gonna give us a nice grip over the e5 square. Now g4 becomes more interesting with the idea to take and then play knight e5, even though I'm not like a huge fan of it. Maybe we have queen c2 as a move since he doesn't have c5 and rook c8 ideas to get any play. I'm gonna be using queen c2 in this position. I usually don't play this way with queen c2, but in this super specific case, I think it might actually give us a nice position and could potentially even castle long. Yeah. Do we start knight e5 or long castle? I think we start long castle, yeah. I mean, I'm just making the game a bit more interesting. Like, can definitely castle short and be better. It goes b5, which is sort of understandable. Just gonna go knight e5. In case he takes, we'll take with a pawn and play knight f3. Defending and preparing to push. If b4 c4 I was thinking, or we can even just ignore it. But b4 c4 looks kind of nice. Maybe I'm just gonna play b4 h4 and try to speed up the attack, because like b4 c4 I'm thinking he has b3, kind of an annoying move. We can take, he plays rook b8, we play queen c3. That also looks like good for us. Has rook b4. Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna play c4. I think that's the way to go. On knight b6 though, we can just play b3 and I think his attack is really not going that far now, even though we can also take and... What is he gonna do with this knight? I don't know, let's ask him. Knight is hanging. Pawn's also gonna be hanging next. So yeah, not gonna be playing this move because we're opening up the file, but we just take, hitting the queen, and there's an idea of taking, but he takes with a queen, so maybe just knight g5 instead, just putting pressure. Expecting something like this. Okay, so he just takes, but knight e6. I think we just collect the exchange, and that should not really be achieving anything, and I think we'll just try to get rid of the queens right now with queen b3. He's gonna play knight d5, not gonna allow it, but there's like bishop g3 followed by e4. He wants c4. That was actually a good move by my opponent, but I think we have queen f3. He can still avoid the trade, but I think queen f3 is like a good way of getting out of this, yeah, madness. I don't know how to call it. I was thinking to actually sack the queen in some lines, but just gonna go queen g4. In case he goes knight e7. Wait, what? This should not really work, but maybe it will. Idea just to sack the rook. Play queen e4, I mean, just try to keep it under control. Queen c2 next, in case of rook c8. Yeah, I can take the pawn, I don't mind it. Rook d1. We'll have to play around these pieces. Just gonna go bishop e1 next. And win. There's no counterplay now. Okay, kept it under control. Gotta win. Okay, I think that was actually like a reasonable game. As I was saying in the opening, I actually have a super specific video that I highly recommend you to check about this Chigorin variation, because I really think it's the most important video that you need to watch if you're a beginner trying to learn the London system, because literally all the low rated players are gonna go for the Chigorin. And yeah, I mean, here I'm playing against the master, but he really went for like one of the best ways of playing this. But I don't really expect too many of your opponents to play this kind of subtle order of delaying developing this knight, because how I honestly see this line being played in lower elos, they just go like knight f6, let's say, they play there, and then you can use this idea that I'm recommending in the video with bishop b5. They'll play something like this, you can go g4, knight e5, and what actually ends up being played is something like either they go queen d6, you take the queen, they can throw in the check, but you can actually, yeah, just play c3, hit the queen, then you actually collect the rook, you win. Or they go like bishop d6, you end up taking there, and you win the exchange. But obviously my opponent, yeah, was apparently playing Chigorin against d4, so he knew this kind of well. But I think as far as you allow them to take on f4, you're gonna be getting like pleasant positions. Just developing like bishop to d3, idea to castle short, like queen either e2 or c2. I think both are fine in these positions. Normally I'd prefer like the e2 square for the queen, because usually queen c2 is not really a thing in like the c5 lines, because they can like play rook c8 and hit you with like knight b4 and all kinds of nasty stuff on the c file. But here queen c2 was fine as well, as I did in the game. Yeah, I believe it's perfectly fine. Could also just castle, could also play g4 as I was saying. I like queen c2 though, being a bit more flexible, and perhaps no need to rush with long castle. He went b5, which I think is a good move in a way that he goes for the counterplay immediately, but I thought I should be better after knight e5. He took and went knight d7, knight e3, and then he went b4. c4 felt nice. Perhaps should have started with this and then just play like this. Yeah, because he doesn't have a good square for the knight, and this is very slow. I get h5 with like a lot of play. I went c4 though, kind of anticipating b3, queen b, rook b8, queen c3. I thought this was good, but apparently he gets like a lot of play himself after knight c5 with knight a4 ideas. So yeah, I should have trusted my instinct and gone for like h4. There's also like this super standard rule that you shouldn't be advancing pawns on the side where your opponent is attacking, which, you know, applies here apparently. But I thought, you know, c4 combined with like pressure on the d file, the fact that knight is hanging on c6 sort of makes some sense. But he has this super nice b3 move that he apparently missed, and he played knight b6. And issue for him was that he can't take with a knight because knight on c6 was hanging, so he had to play knight e7, but then he's just like completely lost. Think the rest was like kind of okay played. With e4, queen f3, and for example, if he goes queen, let's say e7 here, I think we can sack the queen with like this. I think this is still like better because pawns are fast, but okay, no need to. And also here it wasn't really that good, and again we're like completely crashing. I went rook d3 just because I was kind of running out of time. Queen e4, I made a bit of a mess, but then slowly came back to the winning path. Somehow my opponent can be better after rook c6 here. It's like super strange. Ooh, that's the idea. Yeah, but it's just obviously a time travel mess, and now after I finally find this path for the bishop, it's over. Then also I think queen e4 was like super nice to just kind of dominate this queen, and I'm pretty much pre-moving this or like that to win. So okay, I think that was a super instructive game and super important for especially the lower ranked audience that's kind of struggling against knight f3, knight c6 lines without c5. So I keep facing a 2480 this time. I'm gonna go d4, and against knight f6, we're using bishop to f4 on the second move. Against the first move d5, we play with knight f3. Pretty important, but it might very well just end up transposing it to each other, as you can see. And opponent's playing with e6, which makes me think he might be looking for like a quick bishop d6 type of line. And I think we have to play c3 here. I think I've looked this up for my upcoming chessable course. And the idea is to meet like queen c7 with taking and then going knight e5. Trying to set up the reversed stone wall pretty much. Yeah, just gonna go f4, and I think white is getting really pleasant positions here with this good bishop against the bad one. So this is also gonna be like a typical pawn structure that we're gonna have in the separate chapter that it's kind of new and chessable about like typical pawn structures for the course. And I think it's kind of a super useful tool as, you know, if you want to be like a super successful London system player, you've got to understand when to abuse this, because it's like pretty powerful. He goes queen g5, which is the double attack. I've actually seen this move. I thought I can just play either queen f3 or queen e2. If I go to f3 though, I'm not sure like what's the follow-up, so perhaps e2 might be better with keeping the f3 square for the knight. Might be wrong on that. I'm just gonna play queen e2. Perhaps even keeping ideas of a long castle. Who knows? I'm expecting him to play something like knight c6. Because if he castles short, I still have ideas to go there. Okay, I mean, this should be like super standard castling short. No need to go for something else. And rook f4 is a move. Knight f3 is another one. Rook f3 though. Okay, I like rook f4 though. So I don't really mind taking I take with a c-pawn. That's not really the issue. And yeah, we have this plus rook g4 kind of ideas. He might go f6, but we might be able to just double up. Okay, so he goes f5. Interesting, trying to block everything. So we can go for the en passant. He's gonna have to take with the rook as an only move. Then we can perhaps double. Can also take, can also play rook g4. Could also throw in knight f3. I think knight f3 is quite tempting now, because going there we have rook h4 and h7 is actually dropping. So I think this wins. That's actually pretty funny. That is actually like a queen trap, so he's gotta go to h5. And then queen back, but... or win h7 pawn, which is actually a pretty important pawn in this position, since his king is gonna be feeling very weak afterwards. Yeah, just gonna go rook h4 as I was saying, collecting the pawn next. I think we're taking with a bishop always. And then just like stepping back towards like d3 would be typical. I'll just go to c2 just to have the bishop safe in case he goes with like e5. And e5 might be the next move, trying to open up his pieces. So maybe I can go knight e5, trying to prevent that idea, keeping this bishop locked. I think it's quite important. And after knight takes, you obviously just take back with a pawn. And looking forward to bring the queen over. And I think this is just like crashing now because we're able to bring the queen. Also queen d3 is a thing, but this check and then playing rook f1, and yeah, black is just like unable to bring any of his pieces. And yeah, we have simply a resignation. So we actually managed to get to 2500 playing the London system only. So I'll actually explain you what was the point behind my opponent's play. So yeah, the point with my opponent's move order, going e6 and then for a quick bishop d6, you notice that he's delaying knight c6, and you have to ask yourself, are they like randomly delaying the most natural move? And you know, players of this level normally do play supernatural move, super solid, fundamental chess. And I mean, it's kind of weird that I'm explaining this because it's pretty much just a line that my opponent remembered and plays, but I'm trying to explain it to you. I can actually try to memorize it. So he goes bishop d6. So what could be the point behind it? So this is a pretty common line. It's been used by Magnus Carlsen among others. It's like pretty famous, and there's also like a super popular video on YouTube by Jonathan Schrantz, where he is giving this as one of the anti-London antidotes, sort of. And by the way, I made like a specific video dealing with all the history systems as well. So here we're gonna be playing with c3. In his video, white has the bishop on g3, and black is able to like fully achieve this by going knight d7, and all of a sudden there's no way in stopping black from getting e5. And if you play like normal London stuff, they just go, okay, e5 now would be a bit inaccurate because we can take and throw in the check, but they can castle first. And yeah, whatever you do, they can go e5. A bit better here, so it should take because you no longer have the rook, and then play e5. Black is just like completely fine in these lines. But the antidote is to like delay bishop to g3 when like the knight is not on c6 yet. And yeah, just play the c3 move, and on queen c7 we're actually in time with taking and then going knight e5. And yeah, the great part about this is that whatever black plays, either knight d7, knight c6, we are in time with setting up the reversed stone structure, which is actually really nice. I'm actually gonna be coloring it with orange and having this super juicy knight on the outpost. And yeah, whenever black will take, we're gonna be having a really nice time as in the game, playing on the f file. And other than that, we're gonna be developing the bishop, castling, getting the rook to like the third rank, lifting it on the king side. And as I was saying, this is gonna be like a separate chapter in my upcoming chessable course, where we are dealing with this. This is one of the structure. We're gonna have plenty of typical pawn structures. Then we get into the London. Like this is just like one of them, and it's just like really nice to play for. I think you can pretty much do it on autopilot. He took on e5. always you take with the f pawn. He went queen g5, which, as I was saying, I've sent this in advance. You can play queen f3 as well, but I thought maybe play queen e2, keep the f3 square for the knight, and as you've seen in the game, that actually ended up being quite useful, because after f5 we managed to take and play knight f3, and he's all of a sudden losing material. But I mean, other than that, if he doesn't go f5, we're just going to be playing rook f1, knight f3, and we have really powerful initiative on the king side. Just then swing the rook over, and white is kind of crushing. I mean, you can already see on the screen that the computer is giving a +2 evaluation for white with like equal material and without black having done any obvious mistakes, sort of. So this is super powerful. He went f5 though, trying to shut down the bishop. Can't really blame my opponent for this idea, but it is just losing material after knight f3 because he's unable to, yeah, save the pawn. As I was saying, like queen h6 is actually running into a queen trap. Queen literally has no squares. That's why he went to h5, but we can just collect the pawn and can pretty much do anything. I like bishop c2 because like sometimes if you go bishop to d3, I mean, it's obviously completely winning here as well, but because we're threatening this, but sometimes you can go e5, and you know, it's a bit annoying because he's also threatening e4 and you have to take. It can get messy. So like when you have the bishop on c2 and they go e5, you have like a full tempo because you don't need to be afraid of the fork with e4. So that was kind of a small detail, not really changing anything in this position, but usually yeah, this could save you like some points. One knight e5, like just stopping his only threat to play e5. Like imagine you play like a slow move, let's say. You go like rook g4. Okay, that's actually helping my opponent because it's stepping in the diagonal of the bishop. But let's say you play like rook e1, okay? Let's say you want to play e4. They can get into like e5. And if you do this trade, it doesn't really look that simple. I mean, then let's say you do another slow move. Let's say you play rook d1 because the file opened up. Then they can either go bishop e6 or like bishop f5, and I mean, this doesn't really look that strikes me as winning as before. I mean, here you have a tactic with rook d5, which is like pretty funny because then you can win the queen. Yeah, I think knight e5 is just a very nice move in general. In the London, when your opponent is threatening to play e5, just go knight e5 yourself, and yeah, you just got like no counterplay. You went rook h6, but it's pretty much having no moves. Like this runs into at least bishop to g6, okay? I mean, we can also play queen h5, and like rook f8 was running into check first, and king f7. This is like a very nice motif here. Winning the queen, or if he takes, there will be mate. So yeah, then at the end he obviously had to resign because rook f6 is kind of coming with the next move, and he's got no way to really defend this king. Just look at his pieces, never really able to join the game. Yeah, that was kind of a good game, I think. And that would be kind of the sort of starting goal of this series. But yeah, I mean, if you guys really enjoyed it, make sure to let me know in the comments whether you want me to make a run to like 2600 with the London system. I mean, that would be like trickier, but I mean, I picked on like 2700 in Blitz, so I think 26 is doable, but definitely trickier since we're gonna be playing mostly against IMs/GMs, I would say, depending.